back to the Knuckleball Experience Show. Today we're going to be talking to right-handed knuckleballer Mickey Jannis. Mickey's got about 50 years of professional baseball experience in the Tampa Bay Rays organization, the Mets, independent ball, and the Baltimore Orioles. He broke into the big leagues in 2021. That's where he made his debut, and he's got a wealth of experience and knowledge, and pretty excited to talk to him and learn from his experience. What's going on, Mickey?
Not much. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you coming on here. Mickey's, most of the guys I've talked to, most of them have, already had their career. So this is kind of special because Mickey's actively pitching. Yeah, I think he's you down in Mexico right now pitching.
Yeah. Yeah, we're just started spring training games down here. Been here about a month now, so looking forward to a new experience down here and getting going here.
Nice, man. Yeah. So it's always a pleasure because you know sometimes people forget things when they're, it's 10, 20 years since they pitched. So this is it's kind of exciting because you're in the middle of it. So, um, well, hey, Mickey, can you talk to us a little bit about maybe your first experience with a knuckleball, who you saw throw it, and I don't know what you thought about it and that kind of thing.
Yeah. As far as I remember, I was just, just like any other kid throwing it. I was 12 or 13 years old, just messing around with it, and I had a decent one, I think, from what I remember. And then think when I was 13 years old, I was just at home watching TV, and there was a special on Tim Wakefield, and they were just going over his grips and everything, and having him talk about it. And I just remember him showing his grip with two fingers instead of, I think what I used was three fingers. So I switched out to the two finger grip, and then I just went out the next time I was on a baseball field, just went out and chucked it as hard as I could, and it was just uncatchable for my catch partner. And like kind of ever since then, it was just kind of a natural thing for me where it just like came out easy. And obviously the whole throwing strikes and getting hitters out with it is a little bit different, but that was just kind of the beginning. And then ever since then, I was just last 10, 15 throws, the catch play was just like, let me throw my knuckleball as hard as I can at you.
Yeah, yeah, that's a lot of times that's kind of how it is for most guys. Yeah, he's just horsing around with it. It's fun, right? It's different. So yeah, heck yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, nowadays everybody comes up to you and is like, "Hey, let me show you my knuckleball," and it's like, "Oh, okay, it's not the best,"
Yeah,
but yeah, that's how it seems to start for everyone. So
yeah, just horsing around. Um, so when did you start throwing it competitively, and what kind of inspired you? So when did you start throwing in the game and taking it pretty serious?
yeah, I mean, I kind of threw one or two a game throughout high school and college summer ball. Never threw it in college, like during the season. Got drafted as a conventional pitcher and had an opportunity um, with the Rays towards the end of my second year with the Rays, where I went up to the manager and I was just like, "Hey, like I got a pretty good knuckleball. Like we have, one or two games left that I might pitch in. Like, do you care if I break it out and throw it in games?" And he was like, "Well, let me see it first." And I just remember during catch play, the catch partner I had, he goes down, which was another pitcher, was probably the first mistake, and he goes down, squats down, and I throw him one as hard as I can. And he goes to catch it. He reaches this way, and the ball dances in
Oh,
between his
geez.
glove and his face and just misses it. And my manager looks at me. He's like, "Yeah, you can throw it." And so then, like the next couple days, I knew I had one appearance left, and I was just throwing in bullpens. Everybody was getting fired up for it. It was something different. Like I said, we were out of the playoffs, and you know, my manager played in the big leagues. His name was Jared Sandberg, and he was kind of backing me up with it. And then when it came time to throw it in the game, I was warming up in the bullpen. My pitching coach had someone run down and said, like, "Hey, this is the last game of the season. We're winning. We want to finish on a high note. Like, let's just scrap it and go back to it." And then just like that kind of switched, and everybody like was kind of disappointed. Ended up not throwing it in a game, and then finished the game. Ended up getting released after the season, which obviously looking back now, it's like, man, I should have just thrown it. Like obviously now, I was a young kid then, you know, but now it's like it's my career. Like I should have done what I wanted to do. But after that, and getting the kind of the support from the manager, just kind of went into the offseason thinking like I'm an average right-handed pitcher, 88, 92, sinker, slider, changeup, and I just wanted to do something different than everyone else if I was going to go continue to play, especially going to indie ball. Wanted to stand out from the crowd, and just went in there in 2012 and just said I'm a knuckleball pitcher, and just kind of went out there with really no idea what I was doing with it, and just kind of just like I said, just like I was in the front yard with my buddy or something, just like here it is, throwing it as hard as I can, just hoping I throw it for a strike, and then so that was kind of the first experience I had with it, jumping straight into pro ball and basically just changing my mentality of I'm a knuckleball pitcher now, so this is who I am, and trying to get people to believe in that.
Yeah, that's yeah, it's not always easy. I mean, yeah, I mean, as a manager, especially in pro ball, you or indie ball, you want to win, and yeah, you really got to sell it and be all in, because if they have any doubt, they're like, "Ugh." Anyway. But
Yeah, yeah. It actually turns out after the season, the manager um, didn't get his contract renewed and went to a different team, and like I still threw well for him as a conventional pitcher because I kind of had to go back to being a conventional pitcher. And basically, if I wanted to go play for him again, um, he basically said like, if you want to throw the knuckleball, you can go home and throw it. So it's like, all right, well, guess I'm not playing for you again, you know.
yeah,
But so that's just kind of how it goes, and you kind of understand it, but at the same time, like you obviously want your players to succeed and get back to affiliated ball. So if player thinks that's the way, then it's like kind of got to let them do it.
yeah, I feel like you have to see, like, from like you, like I didn't throw as hard as you. I was like 86, 87. I was like, I did good changeup. I can probably get outs right away, and whatever level I'm at. But like my ceiling was here, and like potential for me. Like if you got a good knuckleball, you're gonna suck for a while. You gotta
Yeah,
you gotta suck for a while, and you have to have that long term mentality. Like, hey, I'm not playing for myself for this season. I'm playing for myself where I'm at in 5 years. So you kind of have to see that. So like, yeah, you could have went out there and thrown conventional for that guy, and maybe pitched a year or two, and then hey, I'm 89, 90, cool. But you put that in your head. Well, heck, my ceiling's up here, and you kind of have to identify that. Hey, I'm pitching, so in 5 years I can pitch in the big leagues, or you know what I mean. Versus, well, let me go
yeah,
play.
yeah, absolutely.
Let me go to the All-Star game in the Frontier League this year, and then I'll retire or whatever. So yeah, you kind of have to be mature about that, and see the long-term picture, because um yeah, I mean that's the only way you're gonna get through your struggles, I feel. You got to see that. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what it was. It was like, yes, do I know I could get outs here being a conventional pitcher? Like, yes, I did it in the minor leagues where I
Yeah.
had two decent seasons, but it was like pitched up to low or to high A, and then that was it. It's like, do I want to go back to low A or high A and get people out, or do I see myself pitching in the big leagues one day with a knuckleball? And it's like that's where I saw myself. So I was like trying to sell that to coaches who were like, yeah, well, you've never thrown a knuckleball before. Like, why do you want to do that when you can pitch and get people out right now? It's like, well, I'm
Yeah.
throwing 89 miles an hour. That's why, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Can you kind of go through the evolution of, I mean, you got a ball there, maybe how you first started gripping it. You talked about three fingers, and then kind of where you're at today with it.
yeah, I don't exactly remember how I gripped it with three fingers. I just remember it was kind of like three fingers, like in my head. I don't know if it was on the seam or off the seam, but something like similar to that. And then I noticed Wakefield is more at the top of the horseshoe that way.
Hmm.
Um, Forgive me with the yellow weighted baseball, but
Yeah.
that's all I got. And for whatever reason, when I threw it, his way. He's got the thumb more on the side.
Yep.
Um, and whenever I threw it like that, I spiked it every time. So I couldn't do that. So what I did was I flipped the horseshoe around and went this way and put the thumb more like underneath, which I think is a little bit better, or not better, but the way that Charlie threw it, and totally off the seams with everything. Um, and then sometimes I flip it around and go, instead of thumb on the side with the horseshoe at the top, I just try to get my thumb again underneath with it. Um, I don't know why, it just feels more comfortable that way. And like I tell people these days, like, you can throw it however you want, you can grip it however you want. You just got to take spin off the ball, so you can throw it as a palm ball if you wanted to, if there's no spin on it. But yeah, the two fingers and thumb underneath is more, and then you got the ring finger on the side just kind of for support. Same thing with the pinky there. So that's my grip, and then just kind of sometimes it depends on the baseball. Where I feel like with a Major League Baseball, I need to go more horseshoe on the top, with the thumb underneath, as opposed to like the horseshoe down. I don't know why that is. It just feels more comfortable that way. So
Yeah.
and I feel like I get it more consistent that way with the big league ball, just because they're different baseballs.
Yeah. Um, so like a lot of people will ask questions. So like for you, in terms of gripping it, are you like for me, when I felt good, I was gripping it kind of loose. I was like a 4 or 5, just kind of, loosey. I wasn't like, like where do you
Yeah,
when you're throwing well, I mean, are you like 10 being death grip, 0 ball
yeah,
falling out? Where are you at? Like a
yeah,
5 or 6?
yeah. I mean, probably even less than that. What I try to
Yeah.
tell people is that, like, you want to have like the firmest wrist you can, like locked out like this,
Yep.
but then you want to like relax your hand. So firm wrist, but relax your hand and fingers, and everybody's kind of like, huh? Like they
Yeah.
look at me weird. But then like you start throwing it and you kind of realize like, oh, okay, like relax. So it kind of just, comes right out nice and easy. Because if you squeeze it too tight, I mean, obviously that happens, in stressful situations sometimes. But you're gripping it tight, you might catch a thumb, and then you can see it come out that way where it's going to spin, or gripping it too tight this way, it's going to come underneath, and you don't want that. So um,
Yeah, you want to
yeah,
stay
so
loose
I'd
so
I'd say
you can stay through it. I mean, for me, it's like a lot like if I'm tight, I'm getting here and I'm not getting through it for me. And when I was
yeah,
loose, I was able to get through the ball a little bit better. I don't know.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Just I'm thinking of taking the palm straight to my catcher, almost like you're trying to punch him straight in the nose with it.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, any type of firm, too tight of a grip, like not it's not good. So
Doesn't work out. I gotcha. Can you talk to us a little bit about maybe your approach with the pitch? Like, you know, I know like for me, I always talk about, in the beginning, it's like, you're trying to throw this big, nasty moving thing, and then, as I matured, I was like, hey, dude, just get a little bit of movement. They're gonna get themselves out. So maybe can you talk about your approach, how it's changed from when you first started throwing it to, I guess, where you're at today?
yeah, I mean, very beginning stages. I mean, it was just all about filling up the strike zone, and just trying to find a way to keep it in the zone, get
Yep.
ahead of hitters. Because when I first started throwing it, it seemed like it was like, you got to get ahead with your fastball, and then once you're ahead, then you can throw your knuckleball. But
Hmm.
it's like, if you really want to be a successful knuckleball pitcher, you got to just strike one, here's knuckleball. Strike two, knuckleball. You know, and then that's when you get them swinging, and that's when they start chasing out of the zone and getting bad swings and little tappers, and that's obviously what you want. Everybody wants strikeouts these days, but I'd rather have a three-pitch knuckleball inning and you know be on the bench, in a 30 seconds. Um, so for me, my target is I'm just trying to hit the catcher straight in the mask. Because if I'm aiming at the mask, usually I don't flutter down straight into the strike zone. And really, I throw the harder strike or harder knuckleball. So I'm really felt like I had more success at the top of the strike zone than at the bottom. And if I get one that drops too low, that's where it makes it easier for them to just drop their bat head on it, kind of hit it hard. So I'm trying to throw like 78 to 80 miles an hour, like right at the top of the strike zone, and then let it flutter down either to the middle and or whatever. That kind of plays into the approach of the old saying, if it's high, let it fly. If it's low, let it go. Because if they see anything at the bottom of the zone, they know it's going to drop down out of the zone. So you can kind of read that out of my hand. Um, so I'm trying to play into that approach of like, if it's high, let them swing at it. Because usually if it's at the top of the zone, you get a little bit more swings and misses, just because it's a little bit firmer. Um, if I throw my slower one, I need it to drop down towards the bottom of the zone. But if I throw the harder one, I need it to stay at the top. So that's kind of my approach. And then once I'm able to get ahead in the count, or you know, whatever, kind of have a feel for their bat path, I can kind of locate exactly where I want the pitch to go. Obviously, it's still going to have a mind of its own. Um, but I have an idea of like how it's going to move when I throw it, like say inside to a lefty or inside to a righty or at the top of the zone kind of thing. So have an idea of like the movement I'm going to get.
Yeah, you want that batter. I feel like, yeah, you throw that high knuckleball, that batter's up there. He's like, all right, I gotta get ready. But if you throw it, you know, I don't know, mid thigh high, they're gonna be like, oh well, yeah, let's just take a look at it. You want that
Yeah,
guy ready to swing, from the first pitch. And heck, I don't know what your experience is. Well, you throw a lot harder than me. Is sometimes I'll throw one that wouldn't spin at all, and that sucker obviously it didn't, but it looks like it rides, or it doesn't
yeah,
rise, but like perception, it just stays
yeah.
higher
It's
than
just
most.
yeah, and that's when I got signed by the Orioles, like my pitching coordinator was trying to like understand like where I was coming from with everything, and I told him like when I throw my hard one at the top of the zone, I feel like it's a very high spin rate, like four seam fastball that has that inverted vertical break or whatever they
Yeah,
want to call it these days, where it's like, 22 inches of vert that they're trying to get, where it's at the top of the zone that you're getting these swings and misses. And I feel
yeah,
like most of my swings and misses are the ones that are like belt high because it looks like, it's coming in and it looks like it's going like this when obviously it's not, it's just staying true on its path. And then,
yeah,
and then you'll get one that's like, oh, I'm going to take this one at the top. And then that's the one that drops down. And then it's like strike three. And you're like,
yep,
those are the ones that I'm trying to get because those are the ones that look hittable to the batter, and I'll either get weak contact or like a swing and miss. So that's the those are the goals.
yeah, yeah. Nice. Um, can you talk to us a little bit about how I don't know if you change speed with your knuckleball, or how do you use your fastball? Because obviously, you know, hitting's timing. Like obviously we're relying on a lot of movement, but how do you utilize changing speeds in the game? Like what are some things you see in hitters, and I don't know, tactics you use to keep them off balance,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. In the past I've thrown my knuckleball anywhere from 62 to 84.
Okay.
Um, so it is changing speeds. Like I have my one knuckleball where it's like I need a strike. Here it is, like 78 miles an hour. Like I hope you put it at like 3-1 count. Like I hope you roll over on it. I'm just throwing it in the zone, trying not to walk you.
Yeah.
And then I got the harder one where I'm literally going for a strikeout. Like I hope you swing and miss. 0-2 count. You know, um, then I have the slow one, which I treat more of like a changeup. If you think of like a four seam fastball at 95, and then you throw a good changeup or a good slow curve ball. Somebody's right on your fastball, you're going to mix it up a little bit. So I'm thinking of my 78 mile an hour knuckleball as my four seam fastball.
Hmm.
And, somebody takes a good swing on it, you kind of see it and you're like, whew, don't want to throw that one again, and
Yeah.
then that's the one where I'm going to break it off at, hopefully somewhere around 65 miles an hour,
Okay.
just trying to get them out front where they're like, oh, here it is again. And then it's like, oh, then their weight shifts and then you get a weak pop up. That's what I'm trying to get out of that one. Sometimes, if I have a long count where it's, foul ball, foul ball, foul ball, foul ball, it's like, okay, well, they're not going to hit the hard one, but they're not going to miss it either. So you kind of change it up to see if you can get a swing and miss or something that way. But I'm really only throwing that one like 5 times a game out of 100 pitches, just because it's so much harder to control, especially when I don't throw it that much, and it's not as easy for me to throw it. Like the natural one for me is 78 to 80 miles an hour. Like just let it eat.
Yeah.
And that one I feel like I can throw for strikes. 3-2, 2 outs, bases loaded. Here it is, 78. You know, so just changing speeds with it, and then mixing in the fastball just where I feel like somebody's on me, or somebody's like, a lot of times it's, you're facing the same lineups, game after game, facing the same guy 2-3 times in the order, and you're like, all right, this guy was right on me. He's worked the count both times. Like, he's going to be patient. Like, let's work a first pitch fastball in right down the middle, and hopefully, you know, you can sneak it in there. And then that's when you get the like, gosh, dang it, like I should
Yeah.
have put that one,
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to do with fastball. And then obviously, kind of like 1-2-0-2, I might mix in a fastball where I'm trying to, throw it by the guy, trying for a strikeout. Um, but yeah, and then I try to avoid the fastball and fastball counts, obviously, just because, you know, if you're a
They're looking
conventional
for
guy and
it.
you're throwing fat, yeah. I mean, if you're a conventional pitcher and you're throwing fastball and fastball counts, it's easier to hit. But usually in those counts, I'll try and like cut it or sink it just to have a
Hmm.
little bit of movement where I can hopefully miss a barrel, as opposed to just grooving a four seam. And a lot of times, like you have approaches where you can see guys like, you just watch the game and you understand hitters. Like I remember in AAA, I was facing Wander Franco, and obviously top prospect in baseball. You're like, this guy's a good hitter. I think he was like 2 for 4 off me in previous games. So he's obviously like hit the ball okay. And I had first and second, 1 out, and I'm like 3-0 on him, and I'm like, God, I can't walk him. And then I just, he's going up there, and he's just like ball one, ball two, ball three, and then 3-0 count. I just see him digging in, and then all of a sudden he's got this different mannerism. And I'm like, he thinks he's getting a fastball right now, but there's no way I'm throwing him a fastball. 3-0 first and second. And I throw him a knuckleball, and he gives me this half swing and hits a little dinker to shortstop. And I'm like, sometimes, it helps just to watch the game and understand. Obviously, you don't know if he's going to swing. I'm hoping he's going to swing 3-0, but that's the one where I'm just like, just get it over the plate, and if he swings, he's out. So you kind of just watch hitters that way too, and I like to use that as an example, just because nobody wants to hit your knuckleball. Like everybody hates facing you, they hate playing catch with you, they love seeing it from behind, but they don't want to hit you. You're the least favorite guy out there that they want to face. It just it's exactly what pitching is. It's disrupting timing, and nobody knows how to approach a knuckleball, whether it's analytics or a hitter, or it's just different for everyone. So
Yeah.
just watching the game and kind of understanding that.
And then heck, when you throw that 65, they haven't seen 65 since Little League. Like most of these
Yeah,
hitters, and especially today, man, dude, everyone's throwing 95, 100. So like a guy like
yeah,
you, 65 is that much different. Like they talk about spin rates. You don't want the average spin rate. You want a high or low spin rate. Same thing with
yeah.
speed. Like 65, like you might even could tell them it's coming 65. I feel like a lot of them would
Yeah,
still
I mean, you
struggle.
see you see position players come in and throw, and they're throwing 45 miles an hour, and they're like, "Why don't people do that all the time?" And it's like, well, if you see it all the time, it's not going to work. But
Yes.
you
Yeah.
saw it last week. I think it was Juan Soto. He was
Yeah.
facing a Bassett with I think the Blue Jays now, and he threw a 69-mile-an-hour curveball, and Juan Soto hadn't swung and missed all spring training, and he's swings and miss, falls on his knees, helmet's coming off, and he's like, "Whew, man, that's exactly what it is." And
Yeah. So much slower. Yeah. True. Um, all right. What what does your off season and in season throwing program look like? Like for me, for instance, like for me, I would try to throw off the mound as much as possible. Like I knew my toughest pitches were not, 60 feet flat ground. So like, what did it look like for you for building up your arm strength and routines and stuff?
Yeah, I never really changed my throwing program based off a knuckleball. I just kind of added it in. So I still threw long toss. I still did arm programs. I, lifted weights. I'm still trying to get stronger. This past off season was the first off season I trained a drive line, trying to, add a couple ticks on my fastball because during the season last year, I felt like was the first time like saw my like average fastball velocity drop a little bit. Obviously I was still effective because I only throw, out of 100 pitches, I throw 10 fastballs. And if the knuckleball's working, I'm not throwing any fastballs. I'm just throwing all knuckleballs. So like I said, I never really changed my throwing program, but um, one of the things I do like to do is long toss with my knuckleball, probably a couple times a week. You see conventional pitchers throw like changeups at like 90 feet, and I feel like that just helps you like stay through the pitch. And with the knuckleball, you really have to stay through it all the way.
Mm-hmm.
And with the knuckleball, like throwing it 200 feet, and again, like I'm a max effort knuckleball um, in the game. So when I'm throwing it max effort from 200 feet, I feel like that just helps me stay through it all the way at 200 feet. Like, and it's going to do some funky things from 200 feet, but I think that really helps me. Like, if I'm going through a funk, um, like I'm like, I need to long toss this for like 20 throws and just kind of get through it because, you don't want to be cutting off your knuckleball. You don't want to be, you can kind of, when you throw a good one and it just comes out and
Mm-hmm.
something you can't explain to people unless they've done it before
Mm-hmm.
and they kind of understand. Like I can already, I can see you. You're like, yep, I know exactly when I'm throwing a good one. So it's
Oh
like,
yeah.
you
Like
know,
for
th-
me, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mickey.
no, I was just saying. So like the long toss really helps me, and then I'm throwing. I'll come in. So I go all the way back to long toss, throwing fastballs, and then when I start working my way in, that's when I'm throwing knuckleballs. So, like I said, throwing it from 200 feet, then like 150, 120, 90. Just working my way in like 3 to 5 at every spot. Um, just making sure I'm staying through it, and I think that really helps me get out of a funk, but also helps me stay consistent throughout the season.
Yeah. Yeah, because I I try to do the same thing. My biggest thing I always had problems with, I would come across, and if I was able to keep it at 90 feet from my hand to my catch partner, whoever, I knew I was getting through it because as soon as it started, I would throw balls that wouldn't spin. They would do this. Good hitters will take all day. If I throw two or
Yeah,
three, they just take. You want to throw that stuff that's like you said, linear, where you don't know if it's going to break this way or this way. And if you can stretch that
yeah,
out a little bit, it it accentuates it. So it's like it's harder to keep it online at 90 feet versus 60 feet. So yeah, I
yeah.
like that.
Yeah, I like the especially when you get closer to like the arm side kind of like line is where it really kind of takes off, and I feel like that's where you really stay through it really well. Um, so missing because, like you said, I have the same issue. Like, sometimes I get after it too much, and I'm cutting it off, and it's kind of like slider-ish.
Yep.
Those are just easy takes for a hitter, especially at the high levels. Like
Yeah.
they're just spitting on it, and if I can stay through it to the let's see, glove side of the catcher, like kind of
Yep.
this area, like that's the ones that the catcher's like, he's like, did I catch it?
Yep.
Because they stay so true, but they're taking off, and it's just impossible to tell like where it's going. So if I can throw those ones, like those are the ones that I'm like I'm really staying through it really well.
Yeah. You want to bottle them up, use them.
Yeah.
I got you. Yeah. All right. Nice. Nice. Um, can you talk a little bit about, I don't know, about your mechanics, how they matured, through your career? It sounds to me like there wasn't maybe a whole lot. You're still very aggressive, but can you talk a little about that? Maybe some checkpoints or adjustments you made from, conventional to when you started throwing full time.
Yeah. So when I went to indie ball, I really changed nothing. I wanted to be that like everything is the same,
Yep.
like I don't want, R.A. Dickey, Tim Wakefield, they're very front facing and just kind of like nice and easy at you. But for me, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be, again, something different where they're like, I can't tell if you're throwing a fastball or a knuckleball or a slider. And you know, so I kind of my 3.5 years of indie ball, I was kind of the same. The only thing my last year of indie ball in 2015, going into that season, I tried to stay. I used to be a lot more open where my front side would kind of come down this way
Yep.
and come through. So that hurt me a lot. And then I switched to like coming down and I would try and point my front side at like the on deck circle
Okay.
on the third base side,
Yep.
just to try and stay closed a little bit more. Because if you start spinning off, like it's the same thing. Like if you're trying to stay through it this way and you're spinning off, like your hand's turning already and it's coming out with side spin. So I just tried to stay closed with my front side a lot more going
Mm-hmm.
into that 2015 season, and it made a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and in 2015 with the Mets, they tried to basically clone me into R.A. Dickey, like mechanics wise, and it just didn't work for me going into 2016. And if you look at my numbers from 2016, I was like one walk an inning, one strikeout an inning, just tough. And it was a long year for me. I bounced from Double A to High A back and forth, trying to figure it out. And after that season, I didn't know if they'd give me another chance or not, but they kept me around. And I basically told them, I was like, I gotta just kind of like mesh the two of like, I'm not R.A. Dickey, but I'm not conventional Mickey Jannis kind of thing. And
Yeah.
and just mesh the two, and basically is the same, pretty close to the same of what you got today. There's been a few things here to there, but really the biggest thing for me is just staying close with my front side. I've always had an issue with that. Even as a sinker slider guy, I'm as soon as I'd fly open a little bit too much on my sinker, like it went from downward to just flat straight across movement, and that's when you get hit. So it's kind of the same thing with the knuckleball. It just um, just keeps me in the zone a little bit longer, keeps me online, keeps me straight through my target. So that's been the biggest thing. But actually, funny story is Driveline this offseason, they do the motion capture things where they put the dots on you and track all your movements and everything. And usually you just throw like 5 fastballs to get your mechanics. And I told him, I was like, well, I throw a knuckleball, like I want to kind of see like where I'm at with the knuckleball. So I threw 5 with my fastball and 5 with my knuckleball. And my trainer, he was like, I'm really surprised. Like your mechanics are the exact same, fastball and knuckleball. The only difference is my wrist position when I go back. But the knuckleball is exactly how it's supposed to be. He said was just my wrist was like cocked back the whole time. He was like, that was the only difference. He was like, I was pretty amazed at how like similar your mechanics are. I was like, that's exactly why I like came here. Like one of the things I wanted to know about is like if I'm tipping a fastball or slider type of thing. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, that is, yeah, that's great, man. Because if the machine can't, you know what I mean, that thing's measuring all the angles, right? The angle between your
Yeah.
bicep, your all those things. That thing can't pick it up. Like, I mean, the hitter's gonna is gonna have a pretty tough time. And I know Charlie Huff's talked about, like, he said like a four-seam fastball low and away should be the same mechanics as a knuckleball. I mean,
Yeah.
something like that, plus or minus a couple words. And yeah,
Yeah.
dude, that's huge. Okay, that's
Yep.
pretty cool, man. So were you just side note with the drive line thing? All right, you trying to pick up velo. Obviously, you got a weighted ball there. You weren't weighted ball knuckleballing, were you? Like,
No, no, these the plyos and everything are just straight kind of like four seam, like
yeah,
just trying to stay through it. And
okay,
just the plyos and stuff aren't really necessarily to gain velo, which is what I thought going in was like you throw these weighted balls, you get stronger, you throw harder. But a lot of the throwing harder stuff is more like either the strength training that's fit to you, and then like the movement is just like getting quicker down the mound and you know trying to um, you know find the perfect mechanics to get you to throw a little bit harder. So um, the I guess the other thing that I changed going in or after driveline or while I was training there was just I kind of moved my hands back a little bit because I seemed like I would have an issue sometimes when I'd break my hands here. I'd be a little bit too long, so sometimes my hand wouldn't get to release on time, and obviously that's an issue because with the knuckleball you really need everything to be perfect mechanically. So I moved my hands back a little bit so my arm didn't have as much time or as much area to travel. So hopefully it was getting on top quicker, and I think that's helped a lot. And I feel a little bit more powerful that way as far as velocity wise.
Yeah, getting on top, I feel, you've got kind of hit on it is like I think your nemesis, at least for me, is if you get under it and you get some slight backspin, I'd rather have slight topspin. I'd rather have one forward rotation than one back rotation. And like you said,
Correct.
if your arm is too long, your body's coming, you might throw one revolution, but if you're under it, it's for me, I feel like it stays up. It doesn't break as much as, if you can get
Yeah.
on top of the ball.
Yeah. That's a funny thing you said that, and I think we were talking about earlier how in my debut I was going through like a little bit of funk a couple weeks before,
Yeah.
where I kind of lost feel, and that was the first time in my career where I noticed I was getting more backspin, and it was actually kind of funny because in my debut I struck out Jordan Alvarez, the first batter I faced, and if you see the slow down video of the knuckleball, it was like one revolution backwards backspin,
Yeah.
and obviously it worked at that time. And everybody sees a knuckleball on social media, and they're like, "Oh my god, that's amazing!" And they're like,
Yeah.
"That's such an awesome pitch. Look at the spin on that." And I'm sitting there like, "That wasn't even a good knuckleball because that thing spun underneath one time around. Obviously, it worked that pitch, but if you throw that consistently, it's not going to work." And I feel like that's what happened the second time through the order was I was getting more backspin on the pitches, and obviously gave up three more home runs that game, and
Yeah.
that's how the knuckleball goes. But and that was the funk that I was going through was the rotation of the ball. For some reason, I was getting too much under it, and one of the things I did following the season was I started long tossing more with it, and I feel like that's what helped me get my feel back a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's harder because, right, the trajectory, right? If you throw it at 60 feet out of your hand, it's here. You can't throw at this angle, for a 90-foot knuckleball, right? You got to have to get it here, but you
Yeah,
still want at that trajectory, you still want to get top spin. And it's harder,
right.
I feel like, when you long toss at 90 feet, I don't know, 100 feet, it's harder to stay on top, especially if you
Yeah,
have to put a slight hump to the ball or whatever. So, yeah, I guess I
yeah,
see what you're saying. Yeah.
yeah. And one of the things I think that really hurt me was, like I said, the first half of 21, I was throwing the ball really well, but for whatever reason, I think during COVID, we shut
Yeah.
down and I was throwing in my backyard into a net. And I think what happened was that's how I got into a bad habit was throwing in the net in my backyard and I'm throwing at this angle, like you
Yeah.
said. And what was happening was I was throwing down. When I throw down, I'd pull down and the ball would kind of come out this way as opposed to, throwing up this way where it kind of comes out with that top spin. So I
Yeah.
think, I mean, for me, I believe that's where the bad habits kind of started, unfortunately. But that was just the world we were living in at the time. So, like I said, I was still able to get that opportunity with the Orioles. So,
Yeah.
um, but
Nice. Let's see. Some other good questions here. I don't know. Can you talk about, like, obviously fingernails, like fingernail care, like, heck, I mean, yeah, if you crack a nail or whatever, have you had any issues with that, or you just carry a like emery board around, or it doesn't, you're just kind of like whatever about it.
no, there's definitely like a certain length you need to have, especially depending on the baseball. Like the minor league balls are softer than the major league balls. Um, the independent ball that we used in the Atlantic League, those Drake baseballs, they were super soft. So I even had to do a little bit different with those. But the softer baseballs, I definitely need them a little bit longer. The major league ball is a little bit shorter, a little bit firmer. But I've never really had an issue with a crack nail. sometimes here and there where like it would be hot and humid, it would got my nails a little bit kind of soft, and obviously sweating a lot like
Yeah.
doesn't help. Um, but I feel like I tend to throw better in like drier, warmer environments just because I sweat so much, and when it's dry, it's a lot better. So I even like throwing in the cold too. So,
You do?
but I do like
Huh.
when I pitched up in Double A with the Mets in Binghamton. The first months of the season were always in the 50s and 60s, and I felt like like the mid 60s. I always felt like was a good temperature for me.
Yeah.
Um,
I
but as far as cracked nails, I had my finger pad because when I'm gripping it, like your
yeah.
fingernails are on it, but it's like your finger pads are where it pushes, behind it and stays
Yep.
behind. So it's really that. So when it gets dry or like super humid and wet, um, I have to, you just like anything, you got to build a callus on top of your skin. And when I first started throwing, like the first month of the season, like I would get some split on my skin and things like
Hmm.
that. So I just put super glue over it, and that usually holds it together pretty well for at least get me through that outing and things like that. Sometimes it hurts ripping the super glue off, but at least it
Yeah.
gets me through the games.
Yeah. Let's see what else we got here. Can like one thing I like to do, we talked a little bit before our recording here. I like to talk about it. It's just like, I mean, Mickey, you've been in the game for 15 years, and I mean, it took you a couple years from your first year, I think with the knuckleball until you were like you were on the mound, until you were able to be somewhat comfortable with like a bases loaded 3-2 count. Like, how many years did it take you to get from day one to where, like I said, bases loaded, 3-2 count. I'm not saying it's stressful, but you know what I mean, where you felt a little bit more
Yeah.
comfortable. I mean, how many
Yeah,
years do you think that
absolutely.
took?
Uh, I mean, I don't even know. Like, honestly, I felt like that 2015 season was the first year where I could really throw any pitch I wanted to in any situation.
Yeah,
Um, and obviously 15 I threw okay when I got picked up, and then 16 I struggled, and again 16 I kind of took a step back where it was
yeah,
like I just had no confidence. That was where I was going through those mechanical changes where I was changing it up a lot and just really had no feel of like where it was going, how I was throwing. I had a few games in there mixed in where I was like, "Ooh, I got it figured out now." And then the next
yeah,
game I went out, I was like, "Nope, don't have it figured out." Um,
yeah,
but yeah, it was like probably halfway through the 17th season, I kind of clicked again,
yeah,
and going forward after that, really got it going. 17, 18,
yeah,
19 had a really good. 19 was a whole different level towards the end of the season where I just something else clicked where all of a sudden I was striking everybody out too, and it was just really easy for me. And like I said, took that into 2020 spring training, got shut down. 21 started off really good. I was at the alt site. I was throwing really well there. Um, and then again, 21 just kind of lost feel again, and going into 22, started in the American Association. Like I said, it just kind of goes back and forth where you're like,
yeah,
you have it, and then you kind of lose it for a little bit, and then you kind of figure it out again.
yeah,
And it's just whether or not the team will stick with you sometimes. But I was fortunate enough to go to Indy Ball in High Point with Frank Viola, who was my pitching coach in 2017 with the Mets, and his son experimented with the knuckleball, and he kind of understood what I was like going through. Um, and I think just having that like comfortability with him and the coaching staff, I think helped a lot. So I think, kind of got back to my old ways of beginning of 21,
yeah,
and took that into last year. And it's funny you say that the 3-2 2 outs bases loaded situation, because my first game in Mexico, our exhibition game, in the first inning, I got the first two guys out. I walked a guy, gave up a hit, walked another guy, hit a guy.
yeah,
So it kind of got out of control. And then the next batter was 3-1 count,
yeah,
bases loaded, 2 outs. I threw a fastball for strike two, and then 3-2, I bases loaded, 2 outs. I threw a knuckleball and struck the guy out. So,
Yeah.
it's just having that, and like
Confidence.
again, yeah, it's the confidence in it, and um, just having the feel for it, and you just it's your pitch, like you're gonna live
Yeah.
and die with it. So it's like I can throw a 3-2 fastball for a strike, you know, or if I give up a grand slam on that, it's like why are you throwing your fastball when your knuckleball is your pitch? So it's like just having the confidence in it, where it's like I feel like I have a better chance to get the guy out on a knuckleball, so I'm going to throw that, and you know,
Yeah.
just having the confidence behind it. Once you, that's really the biggest thing behind it, because you got to trust it and you got to just throw it. If you want to be a knuckleball pitcher, you can't be like beginning stages of like I'm going to be a knuckleball pitcher. Well, now things are getting out of control, so now I'm not a knuckleball pitcher anymore, and it's like hitters will pick up on that and they'll just be like, well, I'm just going to sit here and wait for your fastball because I know you're going to do it. And
I
I think that's
feel
what makes these guys like Matt Waldron, and it makes it so much tougher for those guys, because if it's bases loaded, 2 outs, 3-2 count with him, like I don't think he's throwing a knuckleball, and that's something you can totally eliminate. And then I feel like until you can prove that you throw that pitch in that situation, like hitters can eliminate that, and in those tough situations, and then it's like you're just a fastball slider guy, and his fastball slider are pretty good, but if you can eliminate a knuckleball off a guy's repertoire, then it makes them that much more predictable.
yeah. Yeah, I mean for the whole learning curve, I feel like you got to be a stubborn little bastard with a pitch. You got to be like, "Hey, I just walked two guys. I'm sticking with my guns. I'm gonna make the adjustment." I mean, that's the other thing. You got to be a great pitching coach. You got to know exactly. You got to be so in tune with your delivery and like you got to be quick to adjust. Like, hey, dude, I just threw three cutting knuckleballs. Hey, I'm coming open. Like for you, hey, let's get that shoulder to that third base side. On deck circler. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah. Yep.
be
Absolutely.
stubborn, but be smart with it. Don't be a stupid stubborn where you just like you're not like in tune with your delivery. You have to be stubborn, but you have to be smart with it. And like everyone, like following your career, like yeah, you were drafted with the Rays or whatever, and you know, if you want to do this, I feel like just go pitch in a men's league, go pitch with your brother, go pitch with your friend. Like you have to throw it a lot, and it's not, you know, learn this pitch. You're not going to be at Yankee Stadium with the lights. Like, all right, here we go. I'm going to start learning. Like, no, dude, you got to go to the Sandlot for 5 days a week for 6 months. Where no one's watching in order to get this. It's not like and we
Yeah.
talked about people text you all the time, like, "Hey, Mickey, I want to learn about this pitch." And I don't think they realize how much goes into what you did, like, where you at, like how much work
Yeah.
it took for you to get where you're at. Like, it's hard to share that,
Yeah.
but it's like you gotta
Yeah. I mean, the
throw.
beginning stages was, I'd take either a bucket or I'd take 5 baseballs, and I'd go to the local elementary school with the brick wall and the
Yeah.
in the winter, and it's 35 degrees outside, and I'm in a hoodie and a sweatshirt, and I'm just chucking this knuckleball up against the wall, and people are driving by going like, what is this psycho doing over here?
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what you got to be with it. It's kind of a psycho pitch. You got to be kind of
You
a
gotta be a little
psycho to even
crazy.
try it. Yeah. But I mean, obviously we're not all crazy, but crazy enough just to throw the pitch. But I mean, I had so many days of just throwing hundreds of baseballs into the wall, where it would start out kind of like, I'm just throwing it like this, all right, then you back up 10 feet, and then you're okay, now do the full arm action, and okay, why did that one spin this way, why did it do this, why did it do that? And again, it's not, it's like you said, these kids are just like, okay, give me one tip and then I'll just throw a nasty knuckleball, and it's like, no, that's not how it works. Like you're just chucking it so much, and the amount of baseballs that you go through throwing it up against a brick wall that are just shredding seams, and like, oh, I gotta go get another baseball, and then it's just so much throwing. And again, that's what's great about it, because you're not going out there ripping 100 sliders. Like you can't do that. Like you
Yeah.
can you can go out there and you can throw 100 knuckleballs nonstop, max effort, and it doesn't have the same fatigue on your arm. Um, and that's literally what it took for me is, my favorite catch partner for 8 years was a brick wall because I could just throw it as much as I wanted to and kind of figure it out on my own. And a lot of it's trial and error and messing with grips and finding out what works. And when Stephen Wright was in the big leagues, he had a different grip. When Tim Wakefield was in the big leagues, he had a different grip. I have a different grip. It's funny seeing George Kirby throw it. He has a different grip than all of us. So it's again, it's not, one grip, it's whatever takes spin off the ball.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's important that people realize that yeah, it's so much work, and yeah, you got to be stubborn and yeah, stick with it because yeah, it's not fun when it was 35 degrees out and you got a ball that it looks like a ball of yarn because it's got tore up from the brick, and you're hungry. Anyway, yeah, it's not easy. You know what I mean? Or you're in indie ball making $800 a month, and you're on a 10-hour drive, and you just gave up 6 runs last outing, and coach doesn't seem too happy with you. What do you do then? Are you going to say, you know what, let's just go to the regular stuff? It's like, no, no, stick with the plan, brother. I mean, you got to,
Yeah.
anyway, it's important that people realize that, because you'd be wasting time if you didn't think you had to go through some of that. Um,
Yeah.
anyway, um, nice, man. Well, is there any, I don't know, we talked about a lot of stuff. Is there anything, like, a good question, like if you can talk to your younger self, right? If you can talk to, 2012 Mickey Janice, and was there any advice you'd give him, like, hey Mickey, like, with baseball on the pitch, like, any advice you'd give yourself, or anybody new to the pitch per se? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like what I tell people who want to try and throw it is just, you just got to trust it. And I don't think necessarily that I didn't trust it when I first started, but it's just, it's something new. So it's like, again, you got a coach telling you to be a conventional pitcher. You got yourself telling you that you're going to pitch in the big leagues as a knuckleball pitcher one day. And then, you got, and then at the same time, you're like trying to throw strikes with it. So it's just, one, you got to trust the pitch and you got to just throw it. If you want to be a knuckleball pitcher, you got to throw it. You can't, like we talked about earlier, you can't go out there and be like, oh, now guys are on base, so I'm just going to throw fastballs and sliders. It's like, no, it doesn't work that way. Um, there's a reason why there's not too many guys who throw, 94 with a knuckleball, and you know, um, so just having confidence in it and try and throw it like you said, you tried to get off the mound as much as you could. Try to get off a mound as much as you can with a batter standing in there at least, because one of the things getting ready for a game, like I'm just trying to get loose and just chucking it as hard as I can. But as soon as the batter stands in, I got to kind of tone it down a little bit because, again, I don't want to hit them. I want to keep it in the zone, those type of things. But um, so those are the two biggest things is like you got to trust it and throw it. And then you got to get off the mound and throw it with a batter standing in there.
Yeah,
And then obviously, if you can, the live BPs, I think, help a lot going in. Like, obviously, during the off seasons, like, I didn't, you're not as well connected as you were in 2012 as you are in 2024 because, social media helps so much. I've reached out to so many people that have like helped me out, get in front of hitters, get off the mounds, throwing bullpens to catchers. I was throwing bullpens to to a fence for most of my early career, and I tell people it's hard to tell like how good a knuckleball is unless a hitter's standing in there swinging a bat because you can throw one and you're like, man, that looked pretty nasty, but like,
yeah,
was it?
yeah,
And so it's this off season I really just I really didn't throw too many bullpens. Like I did some touch and feels here and there, but like I was like, I'm always the first guy that's like, give me a hitter standing in there, let him swing. I don't care if he hits 10 home runs off me. which never happens. But
Yeah.
but uh, but yeah, just getting in there, facing some hitters, and trusting the pitch. You gotta trust it. I know R.A. Dickey talks about that a lot. Is just trusting it and throwing it. He was kind of the same thing, conventional guy, and switched over to the knuckleball and all that, and he kind of bounced around, and then, obviously he was 35 when he figured it out for like when he took it to the next level.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm still trying to preach that to teams. Is like,
Yeah.
look, Ari Dickey won a Cy Young or signed a minor league deal at 35 with the Mets, and then won a Cy Young at 37. I'm like, 36 years old. Like, do I think I'm going to win a Cy Young? Who knows? But do I feel like I'm on that same kind of career path? I'm like, yes. Like, I feel like you can give me a minor league contract, and if I really figure it out, which I feel like I'm throwing the best knuckleball of my career, like, you can give me a shot in the big leagues, and I can, who knows what can happen. I can pitch for 10 more years. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, like if you look at careers like Hoyt Wilhelm, I mean, he broke in at 30 and pitched till he's 50, had a career
yeah,
2.5, and he had some of his best years in his early 40s, early mid
yeah,
40s. So like, you know what I mean? It's not a strength thing. It's a finesse. It's a approach thing for you right now. And yeah, like
yeah,
I said,
absolutely.
I hope I bet you I bet you get a shot. I bet you get an opportunity. I hope you do. But yeah, man, for sure. And everyone's throwing harder, so it's just gonna be something different. Um, nice, dude.
Yeah,
What was I gonna say? Cool, cool. Oh yeah, with it, that's what I was gonna say. Is the yeah, throwing the hitters things like, I know plenty of guys that throw great knuckleballs on the at whatever 5 o'clock on the foul line, but yeah, dude, get a batter in there. This is what I did. I mean, I've probably shared it before. Is I had catching equipment I'd just hang out with. So I'd be like, hey man, you catch, you played ball. He's like, yeah. And it's like, hey, do you mind catching? He's like, I don't have a glove. What? Hey, I got a glove. You know what I mean? Like, just like little
got
tips.
it right here.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't have that be the barrier. Like, dude, I'd run around with catching gear. People are like, oh, you catcher? No, I need someone to catch. So it's just like, yeah, you want to throw to a catcher as much as possible. And something
Yeah,
else I would do is I would keep counts. Like if I didn't have a batter, I would be like, all right, dude. Like I'd start counts. I'd be like, hey, it's 1-0. You call strikes and balls. Let's treat it like a game. Hey, it's 2-0. Instead of like
yeah.
starting 0-0. Like, you know what I mean? Obviously it's not the
Um,
same, but
Yeah, but I mean, those are the counts that you need to throw in because those are the ones where they're like I said, those are the fastball counts where they're like, all right, come on, feed me that heater. I know you got it,
yeah,
and it's like, no, I can't. Like
yeah,
you're not going to get it because that's exactly what you want. And yeah, there are some times when you're throwing a 2-0 fastball, but most of the time, those are the guys that are like, all right, 2-0 fastball to this guy. The worst he's going to do is maybe hit a ground ball down the right field line for a double, you
yeah,
know? Um, but, and if those guys are the ones that swing 2-0, then good for you because 75% of the time you're going to hit a ground ball to second or something like that. You're still going to get yourself out. But,
yeah,
um, so it's like you got to pick your spots for those. And, it's, it's just like I remember R.A. Dickey said, and I totally agree, is there's pretty much like a list of 20 small, victories that you get. It's like the first thing you can do with the knuckleball is learn how to throw strikes with it. Then it's like, okay, throwing it in every count. Then it's, changing speeds with it. Then it's like throwing to a certain location at certain times. Then it's like holding runners. Then it's, your
mm,
pickoff, it's like there's so many little things that go into throwing a knuckleball where it's like, you see a guy who just signed and you're like, all right, sweet. They took a chance on a knuckleball pitcher, but it's like, okay, like he literally just started, and it's like, how long it took for me to even figure out how to like compete in a game before I can, it was like, okay, I'm throwing it, you know, when I first started, I was like, okay, I'm a knuckleball pitcher. I'm going to throw it, 80% of the time. And I was like,
yeah,
okay, that didn't work. Let's start off 30% of the time. Let's
yeah,
throw it first pitch strikes.
yeah,
Let's throw it, 2-0 for a strike. Then it's like, okay, now it's 40%. I got that figured out. Then it's like throwing it 50%, 60%, 7, and then it's 80% of the time. And then it's like I've had one game in Double A where I threw 8 innings and I threw every single pitch was a knuckleball because it was on that day. And I'm like, me and my catcher were looking at each other and he's like, he just nods your head like, let's do it every single
So,
pitch. And it
yeah,
was literally like I had a couple 3-2 counts and I'm throwing it 3-2 and getting outs, and I'm throwing it 2-0 and getting outs, and I'm just pounding the strike zone, and I think I threw 105 pitches and I threw 105 knuckleballs. So
yeah,
obviously that's a rarity, but that's really the goal, is like I want to throw it every pitch.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, kind of going back, that's the other thing. Some of these younger kids are like, oh, I can throw a good knuckleball. That's my ticket. Well, no, you got to learn how to hold runners on, feel your position. And I've talked about it before. Like, I feel like we need to do it better than most. Like,
Absolutely.
first of all, it's slower. Generally, it's a slower pitch, harder on the catcher, timing wise, than the whole handling it. So, like,
Yep.
your pickoff move, your ability to change your looks and hold a runner on, you have to be the best on the team. I feel like if you want to be successful, every team you go to, you should be the best at holding runners on and feeling your position. Like
Absolutely.
you're gonna get a lot of those little duck snorts and between you and the base path, and you got to be able to get over there and you get those outs.
Yep.
Like, yeah, take pride in it. That's one thing that I did. What's his name? Necro there. He was huge on. I think he had a couple Gold Gloves, but he said he hated running, and that's what he did for his conditioning. He pulled some coach aside and spent 20 minutes with covering first and ground bunts third baseline, first baseline, one hopper's back at you. He took a lot of pride in it,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean it
Yeah.
shows, and I think that's well, it's not sexy, right? It's not, it's
Yeah.
what's cool is throwing knuckleballs, to your catcher and him missing. That's like the oh
That's what
wow, look at that.
everybody that's what everybody expects, is like, "Oh, the catcher caught it. It must not be any good." It's like the catcher's a professional athlete too.
Yeah,
Like he's going to figure out a way to catch it.
yeah,
And again, you have the big glove because it's not for every single pitch. It's for the 5 to 10 a game that are just absolutely disgusting, where you're like, "Oh my god, where's it going to
yeah,
go?" And then they miss it anyways with the big glove. And that's what I think coaches and players and front office staff don't understand, is like, you can throw a knuckleball that's really nasty and he catches it, but they expect, the highlights, and you see it all the time, is like Charlie Huff had this game where he had 8 passed balls, and it's like, yeah, that's not that's not good. Like, it's nasty, but half of those aren't strikes, and then guys are running the bases, so it's like, it's just, again, that's part of the game of holding runners and fielding your position. I had a game 2 years ago where the guy went to check swing and the ball hit his knob of his bat and hit a one hopper to the third baseman on a knuckleball, and I was like, "What the heck was that?"
yeah,
Like, I didn't even know he hit it. I didn't know where the ball went because he didn't even
yeah,
swing. And those are the kind of funny things that you get, but those are the ones that, like you said, trickle in front of the plate, and you got to make those plays, especially as a knuckleball pitcher, because odds are the next bat might do the same thing. And it's like I said, I think R.A. Dickey won as a Gold Glove too, one of the years, and
yeah.
so it's definitely, I feel like it's more important too, and something I take pride in as well.
Yeah, man. I think that's overlooked. It's not cool. It's not, hey, I'm going to drive line to work on my my third base side bunt and throwing to first. Like, there's no school for that.
Yeah,
But you should,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's pretty darn important. It's just uh anyway, because I struggled. Whew, I struggled, and I never got like great at it, but yeah, it was a wake up call for me. Anyway, when I started throwing it, I was like, I would I would show up and I'd be like, hey Bobby, can you cover first? I was like, yeah, what's up, man? Oh, I need to work on my holds. Like, that's the other thing psychologically. Like, if you get in rhythm, you come set, throw, come set, throw, come set, throw. I got good at that, but I struggled when I'd have to come set 3-1000. I'd have to hold this grip for 3 or 4 seconds and then throw it. Like that's different. So that's you have to
Yeah,
practice it. It shouldn't be the first time in the game. That's another like small little tidbit. You should practice hold 4 to 5 second holds then throw a knuckleball because oh it's different and I struggled with it and I got better at it. But anyway,
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
so well hey Mickey man, dude, I appreciate your time. I think we went over a lot of really good stuff there and um if anyone wants to reach out to you, they can reach out to you if they have any questions, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, social media or whatever. But yeah, I try to help out as much as I can, and um, you know, um, give them tidbits and just try to help, you know, pass it along and keep the knuckleball alive.
Yeah.
I'm obviously still trying to do that. So, um, I still, like I said, I still believe I can pitch in the major leagues and be successful for 10 plus years. I'm 36 years old, but guys have pitched up to 48, 50 years old as a knuckleballer. So, obviously there's different age in the game, but I still believe that. So,
Yeah.
um, still trying to get back, and hopefully something breaks through this season. And other than that, we'll have some fun down in Mexico, winning some ball games and throwing the knuckleball around.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Well, I'll be following you. I I'm sure something will happen, dude. So anyway, keep up the good work, Mickey, man. I appreciate the time and let's stay in touch and yeah, dude, keep up the good work, dude.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I appreciate you having me on, and anything else comes up, feel free to reach out.
All right. All right, Mickey. Thanks, man.
Yep.
Laters.